This is TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And the State of the Saints podcast is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Over 2 million men worldwide choose Manscaped for all their below-the-waist needs. For those that love the Lawnmower 3.0, well, I got news for you. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. The new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim all through additional guards lengths, sizes 1 through 4. And looks-wise, it's sleek with a two-tone matte and gloss finish, even features a hot foil stamp, black chrome Manscaped logo. Show your more off loud and proud. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code State of Saints, and you will save 20% off of the Lawnmower 4.0 as well as other Manscaped items. That's manscaped.com. Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, presented by Manscaped.com and on the Pigskin Podcast Network. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We have a special show lined up for you, jam-packed. We have interviews that I conducted with first from New Orleans Advocate and the Times-Picayune sports writer for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans, my guy, Rod Walker. And we're also going to hear from NewOrleansSaints.com, a friend of the show, definitely JD, John DeShazer. They're both talking about Sean Payton stepping down as the coach of the New Orleans Saints and just the person that he was, throughout the time that they had opportunities to cover the team. And of course, we got to talk about the NFL draft, and we also got to get their take on the coaching situation. So without further ado, here we go. And on today, we have a special guest with us. We have from the Times-Picayune and New Orleans Advocate, someone that covers the New Orleans Saints as well as the New Orleans Pelicans. Back for a three-peat, my guy, Rod Walker. Rod, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me back on. It's been a minute, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been crazy, of course, man. And first off, I want to say, man, congratulations to you, man. You've been doing outstanding work, man, putting out these articles covering the Saints and the Pelicans. You do an outstanding job. I just want to get that out there first and foremost, man. So appreciate your wall-to-wall coverage about the team that we love, the Saints and the Pelicans. So,
man, I appreciate that.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and we got to talk about the elephant in the room, man. I mean, everybody's been talking about it since it happened. Head coach Sean Payton deciding to step down after 16 years of being a head coach, 15 years with the New Orleans Saints. Rod, very, very tough day for the Who Dat Nation, the city of New Orleans, the Gulf Coast region. What are your thoughts about Sean Payton's decision about stepping down? Did you knew this was coming, or it was a shock to you? What were your thoughts when you found this out?
No, I think everybody was pretty surprised by it. I mean, if you had asked anybody last week, what do we think? We would have probably all said Sean Payton's coming back. I think for me, when Gail Benson talked on Monday and she said, that she didn't really know what he was going to do. At that point, I started saying, okay, maybe there is something to this because, I saw people think a lot of people saw her comments and said, oh, yeah, Gail's just kind of, she's trolling people and all that. But if you know Miss Benson, man, she's not like that. I mean, if Sean was coming back, she would have been like, oh, Sean's definitely coming back. I'm not worried. But, when she said that, I was like, this is pretty interesting coming from her. And,
right.
And then, less than 24 hours later, we got the news. And, it's pretty, I think it was surprising to most people. I think people thought he was coming back. And, I wrote my column on that next day after his press conference and just kind of talked about how Sean, he really set the bar high here in New Orleans. I mean, before Sean Payton, there wouldn't have been a State of the Saints podcast because nobody really even cared enough. The expectations for this franchise weren't very high. There just wasn't a lot of interest, man. You know, I mean, obviously that was almost pre-internet when he got here, but still, I mean, there just wasn't that kind of buzz. But now, I mean, every year, the Saints fans feel like this team has a shot to get to the Super Bowl, and that's a testament to Sean Payton and the work he did while he was here. I mean, it's just he's done a remarkable job in setting the standard here. Yeah,
man, no doubt about it. I mean, he definitely changed the way that you looked at Saints football. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans, right? You know that. And also, you know, I have family members that grew up in the Mississippi area, and nobody around that area were checking for the New Orleans Saints growing up, man. I mean, because it wasn't really a good product, like you just mentioned. But this guy changed the narrative of Saints football, gave it a winning culture, and you have kids walking around here in their 20s, mid-20s, don't even remember the Saints being a snake-bitten franchise, you know, and it has a lot to do with Sean Payton and what he has brought to the New Orleans Saints. That includes bringing the best out of Drew Brees. I tell people all the time, you cannot talk about one without the other, because even though Drew Brees had a lot of promise, there were a lot of people that probably thought he was middle of the road, average quarterback at best. When you combine him with Sean Payton, I just think that was a recipe for success. But Rod, I don't know if you were at the press conference or not, but if you were, what was the atmosphere? You know, what was the overall feeling of everybody that was there? Did you see any burnout in the eyes of Sean Payton? Did he look tired? I mean, or did he look like he was just ready to take on the next chapter of his life?
No, he looked like he was ready to take on the next chapter of his life. I didn't think he looked tired at all. He was the same Sean Payton. There were some times when he wanted to get a little emotional, and you know, he talked about it. He said he actually Googled before he talked. He wanted to, you know, how do you not cry on press conference? And he said one of the things that he saw was to yawn a lot or drink water, and he didn't want to yawn. He said, but he drank a lot of water throughout that. You know, when he started feeling it a little bit, and you know, he thanked everybody that he could, and he did a really good job of just trying to make sure he didn't leave anybody out. He named every single player that he's ever coached that made the Pro Bowl or All-Pro team, and you know, obviously he credited Mickey Loomis there. I mean, not only did they work together, but they became really close friends. And you know, Mickey took a chance on a guy who had never been a head coach, and you know, Sean he was just really appreciative. He appreciated the media. You know, he talked about some of the missteps he may have made with the media early in his career and how he tried to get better at that. So I mean, he was just really appreciative, and he seemed to just wanted to acknowledge all the people who touched him on this 16-year journey.
Yeah. Okay. And I also heard him mention that he gave out king cake. So did you get a king cake from head coach Sean Payton? And if so, what are your plans on doing with that? Did you eat it? Did you kind of put it?
Man, I ate that cake. So the press conference was in the Saints practice facility. And I actually ate the king cake before I left the facility. It was just, I had never had that, and I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing it right, sucre, I guess, or whatever it is. But it was like really good, one of the better king cakes I've had. But you know, he gave the first one to Mr. Benson, and at the end of the press conference, he passed one out to all the media members, and you know, he just again showing his appreciation. Yeah, and something else that, and even when Sean was when he was a coach, every Christmas he would send us this Jenny's ice cream. Is Jennis. I guess I'm doing a plug here for Jenny's, but he would mail us Jenny's ice cream every Christmas, and it was just a tradition. Some of the best ice cream you'll ever have. And he said I guess he told Mickey to keep that tradition going even when he's gone. But yeah, I mean, he was always appreciative of the work we did. I think he understood our job, and I mean, obviously there were times when, you know, he would get upset at the media, especially if you ask him about injuries, and you know, there were things that he just that irritated him. But I mean, I think he, like most coaches, I mean, they understand that we have a job to do.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, and also I think we all kind of saw like a transformation from Sean Payton. You more up close and personal. I mean, especially covering the team. There was like when he first got here, I guess he had to be that way because I mean he was trying to change the way that people thought about a football team. And I guess like later on, once he established himself, he won the Super Bowl, then you start to see him a little bit more lax. start seeing the strobe light, the smoke in the locker room, and him dancing during the gritty, and coming up with a Sean Payton dance, moving his hands. So you did kind of see like a transformation, from fan standpoint. But it's good to know that he had an appreciation for you all and what you all do, because you do an outstanding job. And I know a lot of people that watch this team, they appreciate the work that you all do on the ground covering this team. But I mean, there's still some more work to do, right? I mean, there's still more work to do. The Saints now have to find somebody to replace what Sean Payton built. Now, we have some names that have been floating around. Defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, former secondaries coach Aaron Glenn. You also had Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator of the Bucs. I mean, Brian Flores is a name I just heard about upon filming this show. So what are your thoughts about some of the guys that are coming in? I can't forget about Dennis Allen, of course, but what are your thoughts about some of these guys coming in and some of the shoes they have to fill for what Sean Payton left behind?
I think the shoes are like really big, man. I mean, not just the X's and O's, but that culture that Sean built. I don't know if he was always a player's coach, but at the end of his career, he definitely became a player's coach. And you can just see the outpouring of, you look on Twitter and all these players have reached out, and his relationship with like Alvin Kamara and Cam Jordan. I mean, those guys really like Sean Payton, and it was a genuine like. I mean, they're not just saying it because he's gone and we got to be nice. I mean, it was pretty obvious that they really liked the way that he knew how to push their buttons, and he knew how to motivate, and he was truly a player's coach. And so whoever's coming in, they have some big shoes to fill just in that aspect as far as, winning that locker room over. You can't come in and try to be the next Sean Payton. You got to be yourself. I mean, you're not going to succeed as a coach if you're not, being true to who you are. You can't come in here and, if dancing in the locker room is not your thing, don't do that. Don't do that just to try to be like Sean was, because it's not going to work. And players can see through that. I mean, they know when, they know who you are and being genuine. So that's going to be, the big thing. And I also think that something that's going to be missed, though, is this: Sean has such a reputation for being this offensive mind. And I tweeted about this the other day. I just think, when you get some of these free agents, especially offensive players, particularly quarterbacks, I mean, I think one of the big draws for New Orleans was, hey, I get a chance to go and play in Sean Payton's offense. That's gone now. So, hopefully whoever they hire next can, keep that rolling, and the Saints can keep that reputation of having a great offense. But obviously it took a step back this past season. The offense struggled, and so they're going to really need to get that back. And, right now the defense is the bread and butter of this team. But you mentioned some of those candidates. So, I mean, I think all those guys are qualified. Yep. I think Dennis Allen is probably the safe pick. I mean, you can pick him. He knows the system. It'll be a smooth transition if that's what you want. But I think this team owes it to itself to not just give this job to Dennis Allen. They owe it to themselves to go out and interview the candidates, get the one who has the right vision for this team. And, I know people hate change and they're afraid of change, but if change is the best for this franchise, that's the direction you have to go in. And, hopefully, Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson, I hope they do their due diligence in replacing Sean Payton. And, and if Dennis is the best guy for the job, hire him. But if not, I mean, don't just give it to him just because he's been here, because there's just not, sometimes you have to move in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that people are afraid of change. I mean, because we talked about it at the beginning of this interview, the Saints weren't very good during those times. And the only thing that resembled success was because of Drew Brees and Sean Payton. You eliminate both of those guys, now everybody has that level of uncertainty, and you know how it is. If you move to a new place, you find a new job, there's that level of uncertainty. Can I do this? Can I go forward? Is it going to be like I did last time, or what I established at my old job? I mean, a lot of people are feeling like that, but I do definitely agree. You can't just have a guy like Dennis Allen, in my opinion, just because you think there's a bigger chance that all of the coaches are going to stay intact. I mean, you got to find a guy with the right vision, like you said, that's going to help to lead this football team. But let's look at this. The Saints, they're over the cap. I mean, you don't have a quarterback as of right now. I mean, you got some guys that you can possibly sign back. Jameis Winston, of course. The other guys out here might be looking for a new place to play. Is the New Orleans Saints, realistically, the best landing spot among the 7 as of right now head coaching vacancies that are available?
Yeah, I did a column the other day just kind of ranking those. At the time, it was 9 positions, but the Bears and the Broncos have filled theirs. And I had the Raiders number 1, and basically I had them number 1. I had that as the most desirable position, basically just because they made the playoffs this past season, and they have a really good quarterback in Derek Carr, who you can win with Derek Carr. He's proven that. They have some pieces though that are missing too. So, but I had the Saints third on my list. I had the Broncos really high, and I had them high just because Aaron Rodgers last offseason was kind of rumored to be interested in the Broncos. I think you stick Aaron Rodgers anywhere, that team is really, they will probably be pretty dang good. So
good point.
But I had the Saints third on that list. I mean, I think it's still a desirable job because you have a defense here you have a Super Bowl caliber defense on this team already. The biggest key for this team obviously is going to be staying healthy and getting a quarterback. I mean, getting a quarterback is, priority number 1. I do think this team could win with Jameis. I think this team was a playoff team had Jameis not got hurt. Jameis and Byron Leftwich, they worked together. Byron's first year in Tampa as a coordinator in 2019.
Yeah,
that was the year Jameis threw the 33 touchdowns. Of course, he also had the 30 interceptions. But I mean, you look at Byron Leftwich's time as a offensive coordinator in his 3 years at Tampa Bay. His 3 quarterbacks, which was the 3 years, it was Jameis and then Tom Brady these past 2 years. I mean, they averaged 38 touchdowns a year when you look at Jameis' 33 and Brady had 40 and 42, I think, these past 2 seasons. So
right.
So Byron's offenses have been really good. And so you do have that connection that Jameis has worked with Byron before. And I mean, I don't know, I assume he got along with him fine. So there is that connection there. So I mean, I don't think you should just say, yeah, Dennis has been here, because if you're going to bring Jameis back, you have an offensive mind that he's worked with before. So I think the Saints have some, they have some options out there.
Yeah, they definitely have some options. They have a ways to go, but I definitely agree with you. You just don't want to keep a guy around because you feel like it's going to keep everybody else around. You got to think about the future. Can that guy build a team? When teams start to get successful, I mean, we're starting to see it from the Bucs. Guys on the coaching staff start to get calls and they start to get promotions, and you got to be able to maneuver. And if that guy leaves, you got to find a guy that can replace him, that can also lead your team to probably, if not the same position, but a better position. And if that guy gets an opportunity, go somewhere else, you got to find somebody else to replace that offensive and defensive coordinator. So I definitely want a person that's a team builder, in my opinion. You got to be able to build a team, not just be able to keep the ship afloat, because I mean, you got a lot of years to be playing football in the National Football League, and you got to be able to keep those teams afloat. But I do want to ask you a little bit about the quarterback situation. We talked about Jameis Winston. I'm on board with you. I feel like Jameis Winston, if you re-sign him, I think the Saints can be a playoff team. But now that Sean Payton is gone, do you see if they hire a head coach, them willing to want to sign a guy like Jameis Winston, or maybe getting a guy in the draft, maybe being aggressive in the draft, getting a guy like a Kenny Pickett? What are your thoughts on that?
I think in this hiring process, that's going to be like a big part of it. I think that's what Mickey has to find out, is what is your vision for this position. And, again, I mentioned Byron just because he's worked with Jameis. I think he'd be a guy that would be willing to say, look, I think we can win with this guy. You might have, and Dennis Allen may have a total opposite idea. He might say, hey, we need to, bring in a rookie. I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to any of these guys, so I don't know what their thoughts are about the position. But to me, that's going to be very important. It goes hand in hand, just like Breeze and Brady, they came at the same time. So we need to know, what the vision is for the quarterback position. And I mean, you mentioned Kenny Pickett. I think he's a guy that a lot of people are really high on, and they think he may be the future of this franchise. But I don't know. I mean, you've had some rookies that come in and shine right away, like Joe Burrow did in his rookie season. And but I mean, you had some like Trevor Lawrence who had some peaks and valleys in his rookie year. So I don't think you can't just count on a rookie to come in and keep this team where it was. So that's the big question mark, I think, is just what direction this team decides to go on at quarterback. Okay.
I mean, that's fair. But okay, based on what you've seen this team this past season, offensively, defensively, this is my final question for you. What position do you feel like they need to address in the first round of the draft?
Okay, well, I'll answer this with the assumption that because I don't think rookie quarterback is the immediate answer. So I'm just going to answer this assuming they're either riding with Jameis or they bring somebody, they get a
Right.
a really solid veteran.
Right.
So I think you have to go wide receiver, man. I mean, I think the defensive side of the ball is a rock solid. You have some issues on the offensive line. Cesar Ruiz hadn't really blossomed like you thought he would. But man, I just think a receiver position, I think you just, and this is even with Michael Thomas coming back, I just think you need another guy that you can really count on. So I'd probably go with a receiver if you can get you a really good receiver out, So that would probably be the direction I would go in. Or I say receiver.
I mean, it's hard to me. It's hard not to say receiver. I mean, based on what you've seen, I mean, those guys, they did the best that they could. I mean, could you have had better production? Yes. But those guys went out there undrafted, unproven, and they did the best they could. But you definitely need somebody that can come in. To me, I think they need somebody that can go out there and bring the best out of Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is a competitor to me, but you need somebody that's going to come in, and when he comes in the off season, a training camp, he sees this young kid like, okay, man, I got to step my game up, That's iron sharpens iron. I don't think it's a coincidence that Michael Thomas was one of the best wide receivers in the league, and Marshawn Lattimore is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Iron sharpens iron. So if you see two guys competing, at a top level, I mean, it's going to bring the best out of everybody, especially if you have a guy, that's talented at the wide receiver position, and they have a bunch of receivers that are coming out this year that can definitely fill the void that's been missing for at least about 3 years as that number 2 guy. Right. But Rod, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Before you go, let everyone know how they can get in touch with you on social media and other platforms.
On Twitter, I'm at Rod Walker Nola, and you can read my stuff on just nola.com or theadvocate.com, either one. And they actually have a section, just Rod Walker. If you go to sports, and my name is right under there, so you can read all my columns on there. And that's the best way to keep up with me. So.
Yeah, man, definitely. Really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much once again for all the work that you do for the New Orleans Saints and the Pelicans, keeping us informed. Man, good luck to you, man. Hopefully the Pelicans can finish the season strong and, give us some exciting moments before it's all said and done. But appreciate it, Rod.
Thanks, man. Good luck to you, too.
And right now we have a special guest on the State of the Saints podcast. Well, I don't think I even can call him a guest anymore. He's been here quite a few times. But I'm glad he's taking a few minutes to talk to us about the New Orleans Saints. I'm talking about none other than from NewOrleansSaints.com, Mr. John DeShazer. JD, how you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. Like the X hat, I'm going to date myself here. I used to have one of those back in college, but I ain't even going to tell you. I ain't even going to tell you what year I was in college wearing that hat. But I'm glad to see it making a comeback. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Malcolm X, of course. The hat. That's what it's all about. Honestly, JD, something. A little bit of a fact here. My son has the same exact birthday as the late Malcolm X. He was born on May 19 as well. So, but thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. I know down there it's a little bit crazy. Coach Sean Payton has decided to step down after 16 years with the New Orleans Saints, 15 years as a coach. Just want to get your thoughts about Sean Payton. What happened when you heard the news that Sean Payton has decided to step down, and how shocked were you to hear it?
Well, I mean, there was a little bit of speculation, but I mean, until it happens, I don't know if you're ever really expecting it to happen. I mean, you hear, rumblings and that kind of thing, but you want to hear it from his mouth. And so when it comes out, I think everybody was scrambling in because I don't think anybody 100% expected it. I think the closest person to it might have been, he's pretty good friends with Jay Glazer. And so Jay Glazer, I think, put out, hey, he's really thinking about this, folks. It's really a serious consideration. Until then, I don't know how serious any of us took it, but when it did drop, I mean, it hit you a little bit because, now all of a sudden you're scrambling like, okay, not only do we have to work, but okay, the Saints hadn't been in this position. I mean, we hadn't been in this position since 2005.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, everybody's kind of scrambling around like, okay, what's the team gonna do? And next thing you know, he's doing his news conference and everything. But yeah, it hit pretty hard, and I think it's still hitting pretty hard throughout the organization because I think a decent amount of people still get somewhat emotional about it, even now, a couple of days later.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I know it hit me hard. I mean, I'm a native of New Orleans. I can remember when Sean Payton first got there. I mean, I didn't know what to think about it. Of course, I was a football fan. I knew who he was, but I just didn't know the impact that he would actually have with this organization. I mean, this man changed the culture of this entire organization. I mean, there's not many people that you can remember doing something like that. I mean, he it's almost like, he started from the bottom and now it's like a penthouse suite here. I mean, people don't even some people like in their 20s probably don't even remember the Saints being a bad football team, and it has a lot to do with head coach Sean Payton. But Coach also talked about his relationship with you all, the media. JD, I follow you on Twitter. I mean, I seen like some of the things that you said about Sean Payton, and some of the videos and pictures that you put up. What is a memory that you have of Sean Payton that is going to be in your memory banks forever when it comes to him as a person?
It's probably something that very few people have seen. At the NFL Combine, we would do like a team dinner.
Right.
So it'll be the coaches, all the support staff, whoever was there, related to the Saints. They have a private room at a steakhouse, and we do a team dinner. And so it could get a little blue in there, but but I mean, that's the side of him that a lot of people don't get a chance to see,
right.
Because you don't get a chance to see. You hear every now and then he might make a little comment, he might be a little petty, but you got no idea how funny and how petty he can be until you're in one of those kind of situations where he can, he can roll it out there pretty thick. Now you hear some stories and you're like, oh no, that's not him, and then you see him in that setting, it's like, oh, that's exactly him. That's exactly who he is. So that's one of the ones. I mean, it's one of those where you can't really say much of what happened in there.
Right.
But some good stories. I mean, that's Sean Payton that I will remember even more than the dude who's holding the Lombardi Trophy and all that stuff. It was that side of him that you see where the confidence is. It's not. I guess some people say confident, some people say arrogant, and I guess tomato, I guess. But you see where this is a man who's got a lot of confidence in what he does and what he believes, and feels like he can get it done. And so that's the thing that stands out the most. You can see why players follow him. You can see why coaches follow him. You can see why an organization says, okay, we believe you. He's one of them dudes who, if he says, okay, run around the building 4 times and everything gonna be all right, you might run out there and run around the building 4 times and figure it's gonna be all right, because I mean, he's just got that kind of rub off.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're talking to John DeShazer of NewOrleansSaints.com. JD, he talked about you all's relationship, talk about how he was when he first got there and how stern he was. And I guess it's, he started to soften up just a tad bit. Did you see a transformation from beginning of Sean Payton's tenure to the end when it comes to his treatment and relationship with you all?
Oh, absolutely. He was a little bit extra in the beginning. I mean, he's a young coach. He's finding his way. He's a Bill Parcells disciple, and Bill Parcells, kind of fed the media with a long handle spoon. I mean, he was a little prickly. He was a little, he was not embraceable. And as it went on, I think he got a little bit. I think he did kind of, warm to the occasion a little bit. I mean, now he still wasn't gonna, help you so much as to where he was going to give you injury reports and stuff like that. but in terms of just being a little bit more friendly, I think he caught on to that part of it because, for the most part, I mean, I don't think the overwhelming majority of media people aren't out to get you. They're out to get some stories, but they ain't out to get you personally.
Right.
And I think, as he went on, I think he kind of realized, hey, I can loosen up a little bit. These people aren't trying to hurt me. In fact, a lot of what they do kind of helps the program. So I think he got that part of it figured out to, as he went along.
Yeah. Final question for you. I heard, and I asked I asked Rod Walker this as well. Sean Payton gave everybody king cakes. Did you eat yours, or are you gonna keep it for sentimental value?
Bro, look at I don't even like king cake. Okay, so let me start that out. Like, I don't eat king cake. I can count on one hand the number of times I've had king cake. So, but because he bought it, because he brought it in there, I got one and I did eat it. And let me tell you, man, it was good. Yeah. Now, you can't make a healthy diet off of that, because I mean, there was nothing healthy about that piece of king cake. I mean, it had so much icing on there. It was thick, man. It was good though. It was good, man. It was fresh. It was good. And so, if I had to buy a king cake, and I'm not a king cake buyer, but if I had to buy one, I would go to that place and probably get one, because like I said, I'm not a king cake connoisseur, but that piece, I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, look, Rod said the same exact thing. Right? So I'm trying to figure out where he got it from, because I'm trying to get some of that king cake.
Oh, well, the name of the place is Sucre, I think, Sucre. I don't know where the place is. And like I said, I ain't running out to buy one, but if somebody say, hey, I want you to pick up a king cake, I swear that's where I'm going. I swear. I mean, it was that good.
Yeah. Well, shouts out to Sucre. Okay, we got to give him a shout out, because this is second story I heard about how good that king cake was. But we're going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. We know now that Coach Payton is gone. Of course, we have to find his replacement. I mean, there's some guys out there right now. The team is trying to conduct some interviews. They requested interviews with Dennis Allen, of course, is one of the candidates. You also have Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn. I mean, there's so many guys out there that can be a good fit for the New Orleans Saints. But let's start a little bit with the replacement. What do you think the replacement has to do in order to pick up where Sean Payton left off?
Well, one, I hate to say you don't want to drop the ball, but you got to be yourself. The first thing, I mean, you got to be your authentic self. There's only one Sean Payton, and so you can't talk like him, you can't walk like him, you can't carry around that charisma and aura that's him. Because I mean, think about it. You don't see a lot of NFL. You don't see a lot of coaches, period, wearing Jordans and dancing in the locker room. It doesn't happen. So what you got to do is just be you. Now, there's some things in place that should work in your favor. You walk in and you immediately have a good defense. You figure that unit is solid. Guys a little bit, a year older, but the guys who are a year older, their names are DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan and Malcolm Jenkins, and all of them played pretty good last year. Right. So you figure, you can get some more play out of those guys. And then, there's going to be some offensive fixing to do. You got to figure out what you're going to do at quarterback. You got to figure out what you're going to do at receiver. You got to figure out probably what you're going to have to do along the offensive line, because you've had so many injuries there. And, Teron Armstead is going to be a free agent, unrestricted. So you don't know exactly what the situation is going to be there. But There's a lot of good pieces on this team. You ain't coming in like it's Jacksonville and starting at the bottom. I mean, you coming in to a team that was 9-8, that was, with a couple of last-second field goals away from making the playoffs. So you're not starting at the bottom. So that makes it attractive from that standpoint. And look, Mickey Loomis has said, look, we're not looking for a rebuild. We're looking to kind of, reshape what we have here to continue to be a competitive team. And you got an ownership group and a general manager who have shown that if you need something as a head coach, they're going to give it to you.
Right.
They're going to give it to you, and they're not going to spare expenses when it comes to giving it to you. So there's some pretty good advantages to being the Saints' next coach.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great advantage. Like you said, this is not a rebuild situation. I mean, the Saints were 49ers loss away from making the playoffs. And then on top of that, I mean, this is like an anomaly. How many coaches stand in front of the podium and say, I'm going to step down as a coach. You don't see that. I mean, it's most of the time is out of their hands, right? I mean, it's the general manager coming in and say, we're going in a different direction.
Yeah.
So I just think off that alone, it tells you what type of organization this actually is. But that's the reason why a lot of people are looking, and I mean by people, I mean by the Saints fans, they're looking at Dennis Allen, who's the defensive coordinator. His defense, basically, not basically, they led the team this past season, and they're looking at him as being that possible candidate for him to be the next head coach of the Saints, because they feel like the majority of the coaching staff will be intact. What are your thoughts on Dennis Allen, and do you think that he would be a good fit as a head coach in his second stint?
Yeah, I mean, he's the logical one because, you know, he's been in the program. He understands, you know, how things work, and, you know, he understands the roster. And you know, I look at it when DA came in 2015, the Saints gave up right at 30 points a game, 30, which was the most in the league. This past season, they gave up basically 20 points a game, 10 points a game drop, and that's the fourth fewest in the league. And to give up 10 less a game, the way the NFL game is nowadays, that is geared toward the offenses, that tells you something about what DA knows about, you know, structuring the defense and the players that they gave him to run that defense with. So, yeah, I mean, he would be the natural one because you figure you can just slide him in and you won't miss a beat. But again, you know, he's not Sean Payton. He doesn't have that same aura. I think DA's got his own aura. He's got his own charisma. And, you know, being in Oakland those 3 years, I think he was 8-28 in Oakland for those 3 years. You can't tell me that he didn't learn something from that experience, even though they didn't win, because, you know, he went into a really bad situation with the Raiders anyway.
Yeah.
He learned from that situation. I mean, they came in, they were messed up with the cap. They were, you know, getting rid of players. And as much as people think the Saints are messed up with the cap every year, it never happens. But so he comes into a situation where, you know, things are just that much better, and he's had the experience of being on the other side and on this side. So I think he'd be, logically, he looks like a really, really good candidate. But, you know, the other guys that you mentioned, man, I mean, you know, who's to say they won't come in an interview and just blow your socks off? I mean, because, you know, that's why you do interviews, to see if you got the right guy, or to see if somebody else's vision is even better.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta do your due diligence. And I like what Mickey Loomis said. He said, we have a really good coaching staff, but we want to make sure that we make the right choice. And I think that's the best way to look at it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Mickey Loomis has relationship with these coaches in some capacity, but you still want to make sure that you're making the right decision, because you don't want to be in that spot 2-3 years later trying to figure out who can be that guy to replace Sean Payton and leave that legacy, you know, going forward. So you got to make sure that you're making the right decision. And also, upon making the right decision, I mean, I'm pretty sure a coach, they're going to need a quarterback, right? And the New Orleans Saints, as of right now, I mean, you got 2 quarterbacks that are on the roster right now that under contract. You got Ian Book, and you also have Taysom Hill, who just recently signed a contract. But, you know, there's some guys out there right now, you know, like a Jameis Winston, and maybe somebody like Aaron Rodgers, who isn't happy with the Green Bay situation, or even Russell Wilson. So what do you think about the Saints quarterback situation? Do you think that, you know, Jameis Winston coming back could be, you know, a good choice? Or do you feel like, because, you know, you got yourself a new head coach coming in, will the Saints look towards the draft?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know if you look toward the draft just because, you know, you drafted one last year. Now, do you draft one higher this year that you feel good about and have 2 young guys on the roster? You know, I'm biased. I like what Jameis was doing last year. I'm just, you know, I saw the way he was in Tampa when he had, you know, less of a defense and he had to take more chances. I think because he felt like he had to take more chances. Right. And then a system where he didn't have to take those chances. He had 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions before he blew his ACL out. So, you know, I'm biased because I felt like for him, mentally and physically, it was kind of clicking in. And it was clicking in without, a quote unquote number 1 receiver, because Mike Thomas didn't play.
Good point.
So I just like a lot of what I saw from Jameis. Now, can you upgrade at the position from Jameis? Well, you know, the guys you mentioned are, you know, all pros, you know, Super Bowl champs and that kind of stuff. So, you know, now they're under contract. That's the issue. And, you know, they're going to have to force the issue to go somewhere else, because even Aaron Rodgers is under contract. He can't
Good
just
point.
go. He's going to have to, you know, they're going to have to do some things in Green Bay if he wants to go. So, you know, depends on, you know, what those guys' plans are, where they are. It might just be a fantasy for everybody who's looking at them and hoping to get them. So, you know, if you just go about what's available to you, what you know is available to you, you know, hell, like I said, I like what Jameis did last year. I just like the way he was coming on. And the thing that really got me was the game where he tore his ACL was the first game against Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Jameis went out in the second quarter, and Trevor Siemian comes in, and Trevor Siemian from the second quarter to the end of the game threw 29 passes, which tells me that was the game that they were going to turn Jameis loose and let him throw it. I mean, you know, because, you know, you state with what you know, because he started out throwing it, and that told me that was the game they were going to really cut loose and just let him throw it. And so that disappointed me for him, because I wanted to see him, you know, with the wraps off. I think they started real conservative, and I think they were going to kind of warm to it and say, okay, let's see exactly what we got. And unfortunately, we never got a chance to see that.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell, like, at the beginning of that game. I mean, you know, he was he wanted that game, and it felt bad for him, because you know he wanted so desperately to win, and you can tell he was looking forward to that game, and he was making like all the right decisions. I mean, even like, you know, I mean, they really didn't have no answer for him for the first few drives that he had. It's rather he was throwing the ball down the field, or he was hurting him with his legs. So look, I'm one of those people just like you, JD. I like Jameis Winston. I respect Jameis Winston. I respect the drive, the determination that he has. I think that his teammates liked him. You know, I think that he's a guy that you can build something around. I just think that some people may not give him that opportunity because of what they seen in Tampa. And, you know, I always say in football, for some apparent reason, it's not like basketball. It's not like baseball. You know, in those sports, guys can resurrect their career. You know, guys, they'll give players they'll be patient enough to watch a player grow. It's not so much in football. I do believe situations matter. I believe coaching matters. And I think that if he was to stay in New Orleans, I think you'll see a better version of Jameis, because, I mean, I think the Saints will build something around him. And I don't think Tampa was really, you know, looking at building anything around him. I don't know if they just want him to throw the ball or not. So I'm a fan of Jameis. I really am. And I hope that, you know, they take, re-signing him into consideration seriously. My final question for you is about the New Orleans Saints going forward. What do you think about the Saints offensively? You know, I mean, of course, Michael Thomas is going to be coming back, but you still have issues at the wide receiver position. You still have some issues on the offensive line. So if you're not a fan of having a quarterback in the first round, what direction do you feel like the New Orleans Saints need to go in with the 18th pick in the draft?
Well, I mean, I feel like the receiver position is the number one thing. You know, there's got to be a playmaker. I mean, and that's no offense to the guys who were out there last year, but you got to have somebody who can just flat do it. And you might have to draft him to be able to get that guy who can flat do it. Now, Devontae Adams is an unrestricted free agent. Now, of course, Green Bay can franchise him. You know, he might not be able to go anywhere if they don't want him to go anywhere.
Right.
But you need a talent there. And look, you know, even if Michael Thomas comes back, we saw last year, you need some depth, man. You got to have several people who can do it. And so, you know, that would, you know, and I know the Saints like to start with the bigs, you know, because if you can't protect, you know, you can't block, you know, then, you know, a whole lot of that stuff ain't going to work anyway.
Right.
But, you know, I think you just have to have a receiver, somebody who can just, you know, somebody who can change games, somebody who can make a 15-yarder, a 40-yarder, who can make a 30-yarder, a 70-yarder. I mean, you need that kind of dude who can swing the defense and make the defense back up off of him and give him that kind of respect. So I think that's huge. I think that's a necessity. And then, of course, you can never have too many good offensive linemen, especially what the Saints went through last year, man. I think everybody on the line got hurt except Cesar Ruiz last year.
Yeah.
Every starter got hurt. Well, Eric McCoy Eric McCoy got hurt. So every starter got hurt except Cesar Ruiz. And it's hard to have an offense when all your linemen are backups.
Yeah.
I know people always say next man up. Well, look, the fact is there's a reason they're the next man, though. I mean, that's just a fact. There's a reason they're the next man. And then when you continually shift even the next man, when you're down to your third and fourth and fifth and sixth tackles, well, man, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you can't do much of anything that you thought you might be able to do, and you're playing with, maybe a quarterback that you didn't expect to be out there, and maybe Alvin Kamara is not playing that week. I mean, it just gets to be not impossible, but man, it's hard. I almost cussed in. It's hard. It's hard when you're out there without the people that you thought you were going to have. So, if it was me, I'd say receiver, obviously, a playmaker. And then I think, you're going to have to look into the offensive lines more because of the wave of injuries that they had last year. There's, you're going to have some more support there.
Yeah. The best thing about this, though, JD, is the fact, like sometimes fan bases, what they do is when one guy is struggling, they'll be like, well, man, what if they put this guy in? I want to see this guy. I want to see what this guy can do. By all of these variations of starting rotate, all this different starting rotation in New Orleans Saints had, everybody for the most part got a chance to play. So you have some particular idea about who can do what, and not just a small sample size. A lot of these guys have played in 3 and 4 games. So I feel like that's an advantage for the New Orleans Saints. Now you can go out here and try to work around that.
Let me tell you something, TJ. Here's what I tell people who when they say, oh, just put him out there and see what he can do. Just put him out there and see what he can do. The coaches see these dudes every day.
Good point.
They see him in practice and they see him every day, and they got a pretty good idea who can do what. And it's not in the coach's best interest to not play his best players because coaches get judged on winning. Yeah. So they're looking to win. So if they got a quarterback over there who's better than the quarterback they got on the field, they ain't saying, well, I'm just gonna hold him over here just to be stubborn. They're gonna play him because they want to win. Right. So when people are like, well, he can't be any worse than so and so and so and so. Yeah, he can. The coaches see him every day. They've got a really good idea of who is and who isn't and who can and who can't. So, that's what I always try to tell people when they say, well, why won't they play so and so and so? I said, well, you know what? They see him a lot more than we do. And right. we see him in games and we see him, but they see him throughout practice. They see him throughout training camp. All the times we don't see him, they see him a whole lot more to the nth degree than we do. And so that's what I try to tell them. Look, they see him, they're not in the business of losing. So if he could play, they would play him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. But you know how it is. They say the best player on the team is the backup, right? Because
always
that backup is the mysterious guy. He's the guy that's in the black cloak, that you don't know what he's capable of doing, right? But he's always the next guy. But I definitely agree with you. It's the reason why these guys pick. And I feel like with Sean Payton, I think Sean Payton has said this on numerous occasions. He says, I don't think that you should be swept up in the fact that, you drafted a guy this early, so you need to go ahead and let him play. He said that's not the recipe for success. It's been times where, the Saints will draft a player early and they'll have somebody else out there until that player develops and they feel like he's, okay or good enough for him to play that role. I have to say I respect that, and it's been working. And that's one of the main reasons why the Saints have been so successful. But I think that, just like we trust Sean Payton, we need to trust the Saints franchise to make the right decision. But JD, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. And before you go, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
The easiest way to get me is on Twitter at John DeShazer. I'm I'm on there probably a lot more than I should be. My wife always saying get off Twitter, but that's kind of my thing. So, so if you want to see me, if you want to reach me, that's generally where you can get me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Y'all make sure that you follow JD on Twitter. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. So thank you very much, JD. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me, brother.
All right. Thank you all so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed those interviews from Rod Walker and John DeShazer. And hey, if this is your first time checking out the State of the Saints podcast, hopefully it won't be your last. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. We're also available on Facebook, facebook.com, search The State of the Saints podcast. Previous episodes available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, and a part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. This is the State of the Saints podcast, brought to you by Manscaped.com. Use that promo code State of Saints. You will save 20% off on all of your Manscaped purchases. Also, we're sponsored by Puma. Go to Puma.com. Use the promo code 20 and you will save 20% off as well. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?